The IDF has been preparing strongly for an incursion into Gaza City. Gaza City being the capital of Gaza. That's Hamas's territory. It's Hamas capital, and it is likely where many of the hostages are being held. It is going to be brutal. It's going to be bloody. It's going to be destructive as all heck on the infrastructure there, because if we've learned anything about how this goes, it's that Hamas makes almost every building into a some sort of military structure. And since Israel's got to destroy any military structures, they end up destroying almost all the buildings. So Israel has opened up the south now in Rafah. They were keeping people out of there for quite some time, but now they're opening it up. They're allowing tents to be brought in and set up in Rafah, and they're starting to try to move people out of Gaza City down there to the south. Now, Hamas does not want that to happen, obviously, but one of the biggest reasons is because Israel is going to be vetting the people that go into Rafah. So they're going to set up checkpoints, and if you want to get in there, you're going to have to go through the checkpoint and get searched and make sure you don't have any weapons, et cetera, et cetera. Now, Israel has already been setting up humanitarian aid, water, food, medical supplies, you name it, down there to care for these people that they move down there. But this is obviously a great hardship on the people of Gaza. Hamas apparently has said in the last few hours that they're ready to come back to the negotiating table. They had been saying all along that they weren't going to negotiate anything that was less than a complete end to the war that left them in power. Israel has always said that's a non starter. Israel has been saying they're not going to negotiate anymore for any partial release of the hostages. It's all or nothing. Now, all of a sudden, the plan that's on the table is a release of 10 living Israeli hostages in exchange for 60 or so Palestinians who are in prison in Israel for life imprisonment, which means they were tried and convicted of murder, terrorism, etc. So these are not, people that were just picked up in a raid or something like that. These are people that are known killers. Israel has not agreed to this yet, but what Hamas is doing is they are watching the protests that are taking place across Israel, not just Israel, but Berlin and Belgium and London and all over the place. And they're calculating, how do we keep that unrest and angst and anger going in the Western world? What we do is we pretend to be amenable to, oh, yeah, of course, reasonable ceasefire plan. Yes, of course, we definitely do that. But when you get down to the details of the plan that they agreed to, as I think it was Smotrich said today, it's like they take one step forward and three steps back. Hamas so far has been saying, we want Israel to pull out completely from Gaza and end the war, not a ceasefire, but an end to the fighting, and guarantees from Israel that they won't come back and fight some more. To which Israel's like, yeah, you think? Now, if they get 10 hostages out, that's 10 more than they will likely get out by going into Gaza City. And they know that. But they also know that they can't afford to agree to something that constitutes a loss. Now, think about this. Why wouldn't it work for Israel to take hostages, to go into Gaza and take a bunch of women and children captive and say, okay, you guys want to play that game? Great. You hold our hostages. We're going to take some hostages too. Why wouldn't that work? I'll tell you why it wouldn't work, because Hamas would say, fine, kill them. That'd be great for us. We'd be happy with that. It's a conundrum for the Israelis, for sure. Now, I'm going to pivot here and talk a little bit about, first of all, what could the intended outcomes and unintended outcomes be if Israel goes forward with this plan to take Gaza City? Now, removing civilians from Gaza City before they do that obviously is going to reduce collateral damage and gives the IDF more leeway to fight Hamas without all the global headlines of, you're killing civilians. And for this reason, Hamas doesn't want civilians to leave Gaza City. It would also allow the use of different kinds of weapons. You have to understand, Israel has plenty of weapons that would make it safer for their own troops as they're fighting their way through Gaza City. But those are weapons that they really can't use if they haven't removed all the civilians. They can't use things like artillery, tanks, airstrikes in these densely populated areas because there's just too much risk of killing non-combatants. So they have a vested interest in getting the civilians out of there in order to accomplish their goal of taking out Hamas, but it's also obviously the right thing to do. And that's how winning wars gets done. If they are able to occupy Gaza City, that will deprive Hamas of its last major urban stronghold. They say they could have 4 to 6,000 Hamas fighters in Gaza City. That won't be too much of a challenge for the IDF. It'll take some time and it'll be bloody and it'll be dangerous, but the IDF can handle that. If they get the civilians out of Gaza City, that deprives Hamas of the human shields that they've been using. So that's good. This is a psychological and a symbolic victory for Israel if they go into Gaza City and take it, because they're dismantling Hamas's capital. They are sending a deterrence message to other bad actors as well. We will do what it takes to uproot our entrenched enemies wherever they happen to be. Now, this is the crux of what I wanted to talk about today. And it's a post that was debunking the genocide accusations against Israel. There are all these protests happening, even within Israel. I mean, here's some video of what that looked like. You can see very large protests in Tel Aviv. And these people are protesting against the government and saying it's the government's fault that they don't have a ceasefire and get all their hostages back, as if Hamas didn't have anything to do with it. And I'm sorry, it's just sad to see that there are this many leftists in Israel. And ever since October 7th, tons of governments, NGOs, activists, you name it, are all accusing Israel of genocide in Gaza. What this does is flips reality. Hamas carried out the killings on October 7th with genocidal intent. They didn't spare 80-year-old women or young girls or people's pets for that matter. Now, the article that was put up on X had 15 reasons or questions that show what a lie it is to say that Israel is genociding the Palestinians. Number one, if Israel was trying to commit mass extermination of Palestinians, why hasn't it happened? Israel could easily kill thousands of Gazans every day. Easily. The Gazans are packed in like sardines. They could carpet bomb Gaza and literally kill thousands of them every day. So far, the Gaza Health Ministry says that 60 something thousand, 62,000 have been killed in this war, but they don't count militants and they don't count natural deaths, which would, if there wasn't a war, natural deaths would have surpassed 37 or 38,000 in the last 2 years. So that would have been more than half of the total of people that the Gaza Health Ministry says have died. They also, as I said, they don't point out the 20,000 plus that Israel has taken off the battlefield because they were fighting Israel. Those are called militants. They're called soldiers for Hamas. And so that number of 62,000 they say that's died in Gaza, okay, fine. Let's take them at their word. Okay, let's say there was 62,000 people that died. If Israel has killed 20,000 plus militants, that's a 2-to-1 ratio. That's better than most other wars that you can find. That's better than Iraq and Afghanistan. We've pointed this out many times. So while tens of thousands of Palestinians dead is tragic, it's not even a drop in the bucket toward a genocide. Genocide, you'd have to have hundreds of thousands of people dead and more thousands every day. And if Israel wanted to do that, they've got the capacity to kill everybody in Gaza, but they haven't. Question number two, if Israel is genociding Gazans or Palestinians, why are there more than 2 million Palestinians living in Israel fully under Israeli rule? And they're given civil rights, they're given due process, they live in a thriving democracy. Why haven't those people been murdered in mass? No genocide in history ever allowed the victims to thrive living in the same country as the aggressors. That's antithetical to genocide, isn't it? Number three, why are 3 million West Bank Palestinians untouched? If extermination is the policy, then geography wouldn't matter. Israel would be also wholesale slaughtering Palestinians in Judea and Samaria. Arguably, they would go there first. That would have been the first place to start massacring civilians because Israel wants to populate that area. They had given up on populating Gaza until just recently. So now Israel's declared goal is to destroy Hamas and recover their hostages. By legal standards, to prove that a organization, a government, a military is engaging in genocide, then wiping out the entire people group has to be the only reasonable inference. Meaning, when you look at what they're doing, the only thing you can surmise is that they're trying to wipe those people off the face of the earth. And I would say that probably one of the biggest things that shows that Israel is not doing that in Gaza are the 450 Israeli soldiers who have died fighting in Gaza. Because if Israel wanted to genocide them, they wouldn't really need to send troops in there to do it. They could just do it from the air. Number five is, how can Israel be starving the people of Gaza when they have allowed more than 1.4 million tons of food aid into Gaza since October 7th? Now, that exceeds the average, if you break that down over the last 22 months, that exceeds the amount of aid that was brought into Gaza before the war started in an average month. So if extermination was the policy, why would they be putting so much effort and money into allowing food into Gaza? They could just shut off all the aid, and in 3 weeks, most people would be dead. Number six, where's the famine? They have reported only about 200 deaths from starvation, and that's been reported by Hamas. A true man-made famine would kill hundreds of thousands since the end of the ceasefire back in March, if not more, if not millions. It would have killed a lot more. Number seven, why is Israel continuing to risk soldiers in door-to-door combat? Why don't they just level everything? I want you to see this video of a Israeli explosive drone that's going into a building in Gaza and very precisely taking out a Hamas observation post. Right up there. See, they're up there by that building, and you see it's looking in the windows. There it goes. It's skittering sideways. Now it's going in that door. There it goes. So if Israel was trying to genocide Gaza, they wouldn't mess with stuff like that. They would just flatten that whole building. Just drop one bomb on it and it's done. If they were trying to genocide the people of Gaza, they would not go to such efforts to avoid civilian harm. They send evacuation warnings. They put up humanitarian corridors. They delay striking and give people time to get out of the buildings. They've taken unprecedented measures to avoid civilian casualties, and that is inconsistent with genocide. Number 10, this doesn't get very much news reported on it, but Israel has allowed more than 600,000 kids in Gaza to be vaccinated against polio in the last 2 years. That being the case, if they were trying to genocide all these kids, why bother? Genocidal regimes don't bother to immunize the people that they aim to kill. Number 11, why is Israel still supplying electricity, fuel, and water? The ongoing provision of utilities like that absolutely positively contradicts the extermination narrative. Number 12, what about the humanitarian pauses? Israel is repeatedly halting operations to make way for aid deliveries into Gaza. Genocides don't pause to accommodate the Red Cross and the World Food Program. That's you can't call it a genocide. Number 13, Israel's stated war goals are limited and they're always tied to Hamas's destruction, not the Palestinians' destruction. Now, if the Palestinians are trying to make the point that all Palestinians are Hamas, then a certain amount of genocide would be justified in that case, because if Hamas was the impetus behind October 7th, and if all of the people of Gaza said, we are all Hamas, Okay, then we have to kill Hamas. We have to kill them or get them out of there. But people in Gaza are not saying that. Actually, there was a cute video today that came out of the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation's aid distribution site for women. They set up a special aid distribution site just for women and children because the women get pushed out of the way by all the men because they have no sense of chivalry whatsoever in Gaza. And so the GHF just set up this area and said, we're going to do distributions just for women and children here. And it's amazing to see they're orderly and they're quiet. The women actually wait in line. They come and they get their food and they leave. And there was a girl that they were interviewing after she got her food, and she was saying, God bless President Trump. Thank you, President Trump, for doing this for us. Obviously, not everybody in Gaza is Hamas or supports Hamas. Unfortunately, there are still far too many who do. And even those who don't, they don't have the courage to stand up against Hamas and turn in the hostages and get your $5 million reward and move somewhere else. So it's hard to feel sorry for them in that way, but it's also hard to make the case that they're being genocided. Last but not least, Israel is planning for reconstruction. Israel is coordinating with the United States and the European Union for Gaza's post war reconstruction plans. Genocidal regimes don't plan for the future well being of their victims. So the genocide charge is not in any way, shape, or form reality, it's just propaganda.